Hello, today we're going to be doing a test on Xlights and ESPixelStick. Let's kind of do some deep dive on this testing. Alright, so first of all, the hardware. So this is a prototype that I built. It's using the ESPixelStick. Up in the top right you have your ESP8266. To the left of there I used a daughter board for a 3.3 volt regulator. I had a custom printed circuit board made. If not, you can get Amazon has prototype boards that you can get and wired up, and have a header here too. All this can be bought off of Amazon. Let's see, 8-pin header. I used an ESP8266 programmer because I didn't want to have to build one on the board, the PCB board. I wanted it as small as possible. So to program it, so I use the Java tool that comes with the ESPixelStick flash tool. So you're going to input your SSID, your passphrase. Obviously this is a test setup. I had a spare router. Host name is test. Device ID is test. The firmware is 3.2 on COM port 3. So when you upload it, at the top screen, this is the output that you're going to get. It says it's programming. It's going to connect to a detecting chip size. And as you scroll down through here, it'll keep going. Here's the size right here, 1 megabyte of the ESP01. So then it's going to program writing, leaving. Then it's going to do a hard reset right here. So this is the output down at the bottom. It's going to say connecting ESPixelStick version 3.2. And you'll see right now there's no mosquito settings or effect settings. Configuration loaded. Now it's going to connect to XL test as XL as test, and it'll start to connect. And then right here you're going to see the connecting with the IP address. Now I have a router behind router, so you're probably going to have 192.168. The 10.244 is also a private behind the firewall, behind the router. Alright, once we get that, now you can either input this IP address into a search tool, but there's an easier way that you can do it within Xlights. So in Xlights, if you go to controllers, right down here at the bottom left is discover. So if you click on discover, you're going to see the controller pop up. So here we have test, and you can see the IP address that's right there for it. If I double click it, it will go to the ESPixelStick. So there's the home. Let's see, wireless setup. You can go in there and change that. Be careful if you change it to a different router, you're going to have to reconnect your computer to that router. So device setup, this is test, universe 1, start channel 1. Right here is where you're going to put in the number of pixels. Now I'm doing one group of pixels that are 50, but I have 51 because I'm going to hook up an Oscilloscope, and I want to be able to see that last LED. And then down here is your refresh rate. Now if you go in here and change this, let's do 1000, because you can drive 1000. You're going to see here you got 33 Hertz. So as long as it's above the 30, let me see, Xlights uses 20 and 40. So if you're using 20 frames per second, this will work. If you go to 40 frames per second, this will not work. You'll have to lower this down. I think it was around 800. Yeah, 800 is a max with the 40 frames per second. All right, so let's go back to 51. I'm going to click on effects, and I've got a little test set up here. You're going to see in the top left I've got my controller right here, and then on power supply it's got volts, amps, and wattage. So let's go ahead and turn this on to solid. Now the camera's going to wash out every now and then, it'll auto adjust. So what I've done is I've recorded 12 volts. I've got 0.9945 amps. 11.93 watts. So what I did was record that in a table. So let me go back to the off position, disabled. So in the off position, I'm running about 0.33 amps. So just with it off, it's using 0.33 amps. Total current, 0.33. LED current is 0 because they're not on. So total watts, 3.98, showing about 4. All right, so let's set it to the, go back here, go to solid. And this is brightness setting, so I have 100%. So here I've got 0.33 is my overhead. I'm showing 0.99, so that means I've got 0.66 amps going to light the LEDs for a total of about 11.8, 11.9 watts. All right, so now we'll go back to set this at 75. It's 75% brightness. We still have the overhead. Now my total current is 0.67, as you can see up on the left hand side. So 0.67, that means the LED current is 0.34. 0.34 is 52% of the 0.66. So fully on, I had 0.66 amps driving the LEDs. With 75%, I'm at 0.34 or 52%. So let's go back here, set this to 50%. 50%, we have total current is 0.455. Overhead current is 0.33. For a total LED current of 0.12, which is 18% of the full on current. All right, so now we'll go to 30%. At 30%, my total current is 0.35. LED current is now 0.02. So 0.02 is 3% of the full brightness. All right, we'll do the 20%. And at 20%, we have 0.33. Oh, let's do 0.34. So LED current is only 2% of the 0.66 amps when it's fully bright. So you can see from this, when you set your lights at 50%, you're actually using 18% of the full current value. Now that's in ESPixelStick. Let me disable this and go over to Xlights. So within Xlights, I've got this layout. I just got a string up here in the air. You'll see it's tied to test, controller test 1, and channels 1 through 153. So I have 51. So 51 LEDs times 3 is 153. So now if I go over to sequencer, I'm gonna go ahead and I just have a on off on this one. All right, so that's full brightness. And if you'll see, at 100%, we're still at 0.99, 11.8 watts around in there. LED current is still the 0.66, because if I go back and turn it off, I'm still at 0.33 amps. So turn it back on. Now I'm going to set this, do the same thing here. I'm going to set this at 75. And I have same current. So let's try 50%. 50%. Current is 0.45. You can see that the power supply is showing 0.45. Set it to 30. And you'll see a 30%, 0.35. So both Xlights and ESPixelStick seem to be using the same values for dimming. That's 20%. And at 20%, I have just 0.34, which is 2% of your 0.66. All right, let me go back here. Turn that off. Okay, I'm going to do a setup with an oscope, and I'll be right back. So for the setup for the oscope that I'm doing, you can see the controller sitting right there in the middle, right up here. And then I've got two channels that are coming off of it. One comes directly from the ESPixelStick and the ESP8266 to show you basically the 3.3 volt waveform. And then I've got another trace channel connected to the very end, basically number 51. It's only got 50 nodes, but I programmed it for 51 so that I can capture one LED off the end of it. Alright, so we got the oscope set up. The blue line at the top is the output from the ESPixelStick. If you see down there, the number 2, the volts per division is 5 volts. So it's outputting at 3.4. The first channel, the yellow channel, is at 10 volts. It's actually putting out around 13 volts. So the WS2811 actually takes its signal and boosts it. So as soon as you hit that first pixel, it boosts the information. So let me see. So this is one frame. So as you see on the top where the blue is, that's one frame. And then the yellow is the pixel number 51. Let me just take a snapshot here. Zoom in, that's all the data. There we go. Alright, so that's one pixel. 24 bytes. I'm sorry, bits. Now if you go to the data sheet, these are all zeros. I'm going to go ahead and turn on full white. That's blue actually. Alright, you can see where I go from white. You see the width? So that's just all red. So the first 8 bits are red. The second 8 bits are green. I don't have it shown, but the last 4 are going to be blue. Now, so what I want to do is just focus on 8. And you'll see why here in a second. Okay, so we have 8 bits. This is the red channel. So if I have white on, then I have red. Then if I go solid green, they turn off. Solid blue, they're off. So if I go back to white, actually let me go back to red. If I put in effect brightness of 0.5, that comes out as 001101111. Alright, so with red fully on, I get 255. 11111111. Now if I set this at 0.5, you would expect 127 or somewhere around there. But I don't. Instead I get 0011011, which translates to decimal number 55. Now that's within using ESPixelStick. Let me go over to Xlights. Alright, so I'm back over in Xlights. Again, I have my start intensity right here. So I'm going to put that at 50. Let's go back over the scope. So if I look at the scope, 001101111. That's the exact same number for intensity that the ESPixelStick put out versus Xlights. So they're both putting out the same decimal number of 55, which is why you saw on the spreadsheet when you reduce it down by 50% brightness, you're actually cutting the current significantly. So this is 55 out of 255. So that's 21%. However, if I go into Xlights, and I found out if I set it around 75%, on the scope, I get something that's a little bit closer. This one's actually just a little bit higher. So let's see what that converts to. We have 1 1000111, and that's 135. So just above 127. So if I go back, let's try 74%. That's even closer. So the conversion on that one is 1000010. So that's 130, a little bit closer. So if you want to decrease your current by half, go over with about 75%. 20%, let's go ahead and do a 20% off of Xlights. See what it comes up with. All right, that's pretty low. Let's see what that converts to. What is that? 111? 7. So you're only using 7 out of 255, and this is with solid white. All right, so if I go back, let's turn this off. We'll go back over to the ESPixelStick. I want to show you a little demonstration on this one. So let's go over here to device setup. Now the chip, the WS2811, will take up to 1024 pixels. So let's do 1024 pixels. Save changes. So we've got 32 hertz. And then let's turn on channel 2 on the Oscilloscope. And let's zoom out. Do a single here. All right, so you see that all that data that's coming out of the node number 51, those are the rest up to 1000. And then the blue gap up here, that's the frame. So our frame, let's see what our frame rate is here. All right, so I'm 5 milliseconds, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times 5, just over. So yeah, 30 milliseconds. So the refresh rate was 32 milliseconds. So it will put out the data for 1000. I'll zoom in here. So again, the blue line is coming straight out of the ESP, and that's at 5 volts per division. The yellow line below is the node number 51, and that output voltage is 12.8 volts. All right, so now I'm going to go set up another test, and I'm going to show you what 1000 lights looks like on the ESP8266. Alright, so this is what I have for a test setup. I got a 12 volt power supply. I've actually got 2 inject lines coming off. Right now it's 11.9, 11.2 volts. Over here I have my ESPixelStick. And as you can see, I have about 6 inject points across the bottom. And this is my basically Megatree line on the floor. Alright, so I've got the Megatree laid out. I've got my 2 volt amperage meters on 12 volts. I have 20 lines of 50 lights each, so this is 1000 pixel sticks. So let's go over to give it a try. Some of the effects are smooth, some of them are a little choppy. So this was done in 20 frames per second. I think I'd break it down into 2 strings and go with the 40 frames per second. Now if I go back over to the ESPixelStick here, set some effects. They're solid. That's full brightness. Let's go ahead and change it to white. You see I have a green LED over there. Thinks it should be green, so red, yellow, blue, back to white. Let's see, let's try rainbow. See, that effect looks pretty smooth. Back to white. And let's try breathe. Go back to disable. Different effects. So some of them look smooth, but I really think it's at 20 frames per second. That one kind of looks choppy. But it's getting all the data through. Alright, so I think is what I'm going to do is split this into two and set it to 40 frames per second, see if I can't get it to smooth out. So I wanted to do a test with some 5-volt strings, so I got a bundle of 50. These bundles, both the 12 volt and 5 volt, were 15 watts, so it's 0.3 watts per bulb. I added the decimal output down here, and you can see with it off, 0 decimal, 255 for full brightness, 135 at 75%, 55 at 50%, 18 at 30%, and 7 at 20%. And the numbers pretty much correlate between the 12 volt and 5 volt. And obviously the only difference is the total watts being output. Even on full brightness, I could only get 8.3 watts with the 5 volt versus 11.88 for the 12 watts. So that's obviously the biggest difference there, the current draw and the dimming was exactly the same between the two. So I guys hope you guys enjoyed the video. I plan to do some more testing. If you want me to do some additional testing, just leave comments on the bottom.